I wanted to ask you a question, right?
Yeah.
So the new DCU is on its way. We know that next year, Creature Commandos is going to be the first DCU project, which is going to be the
Hmm.
animated show. And they've already basically done all the voiceover. It's basic, they're animating it and eventually they'll put it out. It will probably be on Max. And James Gunn is working on Superman Legacy, which will be the first live action movie. And that will kick off like the majority of the events in the new DCU continuity. But the question that I want to ask has a little bit to do with the previous DCEU story, and then comparing that to the new DCU.
Hmm.
The whole reason why the old DCEU sort of stumbled and fell apart ultimately was because Man of Steel, the first movie, really didn't do all that well.
Yeah.
I mean, or certainly it didn't do as well as it could have. Like it
Yeah.
made like around 700 million or a little less on a budget of like over 200 million. And I know they had like a lot of they had a lot of sponsorship deals that kind of mitigated the cost, but you got to account the marketing costs into it and everything.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
when you account for all of that, the movie wasn't all that profitable. But being the first movie in a franchise, you can kind of get away with that. Then Batman versus Superman came out, and that made less than $900 million, whereas the two most popular superheroes of all time in the same movie for the first time ever.
Yeah.
I bet you Warner Brothers were expecting 1.5 to $2 billion, and that's the same year that Iron Man and Captain America fought in Captain America: Civil War, and that movie made a 1.4 billion
Hmm.
for Marvel. So you could have seen the cracks early on in the new DCEU, and that only kind of got exaggerated as things went on, leading up to, of course, why we had the DCU in the first place. So the question becomes, will Warner Brothers, or should Warner Brothers have a backup plan for the new DCU? Should they have a contingency in case what happened last time happens again?
I feel like that and having that backup plan in a way means that they expect it to fail. Why not just invest more time and energy in it doing well and making sure that you fill the cracks and the holes and all of the issues with the DCEU, and really, like, you've already totally pissed a bunch of people off. You've like ticked a bunch of Snyder fans off. You've ticked Snyder off. It doesn't seem like he's coming anywhere near Marvel, Marvel or
Well, DC, yeah.
DC. No, I know, but like he's literally not coming back to either of them. He's happy at Netflix from all accounts, from every article we've read. He wants nothing to do with this world ever again.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a lot more creative freedom with Netflix. It seems like
Yeah.
they've given him more of a carte blanche. It's something that I think he always struggled with when been working with other studios in the
Yeah.
past. Yeah.
And so, DC's pissed a bunch of people off. The best thing they can do right now is batten down the hatches and ensure that moving forward, they mitigate all of these issues that left them all of these problems to begin with, versus planning for a plan C before plan B has even soft launched. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't. So the answer to your question is no, they should just put time and effort into making sure that plan B works. Like,
Yeah. No,
that's
I
where
can
I'm at
see
with
that. I think that's a good logic. And so let me ask you this then. We have recently seen that superhero movies are no longer a surefire bet, right? Like it seems like
that.
we're kind of past the golden era of
I
superhero movies
think it's just
because
superhero exhaustion, and we
okay, like the
exhausted by
fatigue,
them.
yeah. I mean, that could be it. That definitely could be it. I think like my observation has been that nowadays you can't get away with doing just an average formulaic superhero movie anymore.
I think that's
Like you
true. Yeah.
really need to create. I mean, and to a certain degree, that's been true for a long time anyway. But I definitely feel like post Endgame, whereas as a whole, society as a cultural zeitgeist moment, people were like, okay, this was our big finale of the superhero genre. Even though it was a big finale for like the MCU specifically, it felt like it was a big finale for like the entire genre of movies. And since then, people don't quite have the same ladder, and also the pandemic. I think we're still recovering from that, so we are still feeling some effects of that. Not everybody goes to theaters to quite at the same level that they used to,
Hmm.
but still I feel like a lot of people just don't have the same level of latitude for superhero movies anymore. They're only gonna go see a superhero movie if it really like piques their interest. Like for example, DC put out the Batman, which has nothing to do with the DCEU or the DCU, and it made like $700 million. And
Yeah.
so if it continues in an upward trajectory, the next one could make $1 billion. Of
They're
the
planning
Joker
on
movie,
the Batman 2.
the part two they've been scripting it. I think they're going to go into production on it pretty soon.
Yeah.
The first Joker movie, won an Oscar for Joaquin Phoenix for Best Actor, made $1 billion, and there's a sequel for that coming out next year with Joker Folie à Deux. So we have seen that clearly there's, and of course, like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is I think like in the top 5, the fourth highest grossing movie of the year, at one point sitting at number 3, and I think Oppenheimer beat it, but still it made like almost $900 million. And we have seen like Across the Spider-Verse make like 600 million, which I think was like almost twice of what Into the Spider-Verse made. So clearly there's exceptions to the rule, but like in by and large, even Marvel movies, even MC movies, they're not quite surefire bets. We have seen a whole range of them. We have seen from Spider-Man No Way Home making $1.8 billion all the way to Ant-Man Quantum and the Wasp Quantumania making like less than $500 million, which in Marvel territory, less than $500 million is like a very low number.
Yeah.
And of course, we've seen a lot of DC movies not even crack 200 million or 400 million. Like Blue Beetle like hasn't even made 150, and Shazam 2 didn't make 150.
That movie is not that bad, you guys.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh no.
But the big thing about Blue Beetle and it's unfortunate because I hate to say this, but Blue Beetle definitely felt like a by the numbers superhero origin story that wasn't exactly giving us anything unique outside of the fact that it was a first Latino-led superhero.
Well, it was
and
a
there was
very
a lot
familial-based movie, which I don't feel like we've gotten before.
So there was enough there for it to be uniquely different, but it wasn't quite revolutionary. It wasn't doing anything that we haven't seen before, right? Like in terms of, he's a hero, he gets powers.
And we broke down all of that too. It was just like, I really wish they would have given this movie like a little bit more money and a little bit more time, because like it could have been exceptional, and yet it was just kind of okay.
It was kind of, it felt like it was like the character, for a lot of people who didn't know who Blue Beetle was, felt like a Spider-Man almost in some ways, like his alter like ego as well. And then the third act of the movie felt like you were watching the first Iron Man movie, where you're just watching two people, the same power set, and the guy, our lead character, has the better suit, but the other guy is much bigger and more experienced, and they just have to kind of hash it out, and of course, the good guy wins in the end. So it was a little, it was cliched for sure in a lot of ways, while it definitely tried to stand out. I think we're like I said, we're in a period now where superhero movies have to stand out, be different. And that's really where my question for you is: the first movie is Superman Legacy in this new universe. Superman is an insanely difficult character to write, because even in the comics, he's basically this all-powerful, like god-like man. How do you make an audience connect with this person? How do you make that person seem vulnerable? Man of Steel, I think, is probably the best Superman movie ever made. And people had all kinds of problems with it, but I think they did a pretty good job of being able to make Clark Kent somebody you can relate to, whether it's him losing a parent, or going through all the struggles of like being this outsider in a society, and how I think that his internal struggle as somebody who feels like he's not from this world, because he isn't. They did a good job with that, but even so, like, that movie didn't make a ton of nearly as much money as they would like it to. So what's different now with this new Superman? Do you think that James Gunn can make Superman relatable, certainly at the level that they needed to basically anchor a full franchise around him?
I mean, I don't know. You would think so. It's so hard to tell, right? Like the guy who's playing Superman, I can't even remember his name. He's a new kid.
David Cornsweet.
He's new. Yeah. I haven't seen him in anything else. Have you
he's
seen him
done
in
a couple
anything?
of things. He's done in a couple of things, but not really anything super big.
Yeah, he's like the new kid on the block.
Unknown
he's a bit of a wild card. He could either be phenomenal or he could be awful. Like, we just don't know. Rachel Brosnahan, I love her, but I'm like, she's playing Lois Lane? Like, what? I don't see that from her. But maybe there's a lot of room for us to be very surprised in that too. You know what I mean? So, and obviously James Gunn has proved himself previously. He has made some really incredible movies. I feel like we've got to hope for the best, but like there's just no way to know until it comes out.
No, I agree. I think there's definitely potential here. I
Yeah.
mean, we've also seen like Nathan Fillion get cast as a Green Lantern in this movie,
Mhm.
so they're gonna have other heroes. It's not gonna feel like this is a universe that's just starting. Like this, it's gonna feel
I
like
am
you
so
just
happy things are
entered.
continued with a Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern. So happy. That movie was so bad.
I don't think there's any way that they would have
That
continued with that
movie
no matter what.
literally only
So
happened in order to ensure that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively
but
got married, had the
yes,
cute babies that they do, and the cute marriage that they do now. As
yes,
far as Destiny goes, the only reason that movie
that
existed
movie exists
is so that
just for that.
they could move
Yeah.
forward. I fully believe.
Which is I think Ryan Reynolds probably appreciates that movie for that.
Yeah.
I bet you he likes that movie behind the scenes, behind the cameras a lot more than he admits it on camera because it's like a joke. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I bet that means a lot to him on a personal level. But
Mm,
here's the thing, though. The new DCU has a lot riding on it. The Superman Legacy movie has a lot riding on it.
yeah.
If they were to fail, do you think there's any chance that they could restore the DCEU? Like, if they can, like, would there be, because like there was a time, a brief period last year in 2022
Yeah.
when Pam Abdy and Mike DeLuca, who are the co-CEOs of Warner Brothers, the studio, before David Zaslav hired James Gunn and Peter Safran, for a brief moment they were like, okay, so you guys steward this whole DC thing because Walter Hamada was on his way out, so like they needed somebody to kind of hold the ship down while they made a more permanent long-term move with
Hmm.
DC Studios and everything. And Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy, basically their plan was to bring Henry Cavill back for Man of Steel 2.
Yep.
And they were going to kind of give him one more go around and see how it went. And that's one of the reasons why they allowed for, The Rock to be able to bring Henry Cavill in for a cameo in Black Adam.
That's also
And
why Henry Cavill had made
like
the
did the whole
comment
post.
online that
Yeah.
he did. Yeah.
So, like, in a way, we were pretty close to kind of getting back to that track with Henry Cavill. And maybe, the Man of Steel 2 could have been a much different movie. Maybe you could have gotten a much
Yeah.
more happy Superman
I'm
and
still
everything.
sad about it. I mean, like, obviously at this point, it's like water under the bridge. We just got to move forward
Yeah.
and like see where
But
it goes. But to answer your question, no, they can't return at this point. It's too far gone.
yeah.
It's too far.
I, yeah.
It's nice to think
Yeah.
like what could have been.
But
But also, I feel like they were so greedy. Like they were so mad about the numbers, but the numbers weren't really that bad to just like anticipate like a huge overhaul. I don't know.
I think it was just mismanaged to the nth degree. Like, of just about every decision they could have made,
yeah,
they made the wrong one.
yeah,
Whether it's interfering with Justice League and then whatever monstrosity we got out of that. And despite all the bad behavior of Joss Whedon, I still think no filmmaker in his position could have done a good job considering how little time he got, and to basically remake an entire movie, a movie that was meant to be like their version of the Avengers, like $1 billion+ film.
Weren't there harassment allegations against him too?
They were, which, I mean, look, that only
Yeah.
that, but I'm saying, like, that aside, no filmmaker in his position was set up to succeed because he only got like 3 or 4 months
Yeah.
to basically reshoot 70% of the film, do visual effects to including removing a freaking mustache of Henry Cavill's face, which is an incredibly difficult challenge for any VFX crew to work on,
Yeah.
not to mention to do it on such a tight deadline. And then everything else after that, like they were like, okay, so they abandoned the entire original plan. No more Green Lantern Corps movie, no more Cyborg movie. The Flash movie basically went through development hell for a whole decade. And then they started to go in other directions, like whether it was Birds of Prey, Shazam, and then eventually Black Adam. We finally got the Flash, Blue Beetle. At one point, they were going to make Blue Beetle and Batgirl for HBO Max. They then kicked, everything that has happened since. It's like they basically changed directions like 3 or 4 times, and ever since they departed from that original track that they were on, which included Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, the David Ayer Suicide Squad, and then Justice League with Zack Snyder, at least, the version that he wanted to put out.
Yeah.
Since then, it's like everything they've done since was not what was in the original plan. So it feels like the DCEU, especially if you're thinking about it from the Snyderverse perspective, that DCU has been dead since like 2017.
Dead and gone. That's why I'm just like, there's no way it's coming back.
Yeah, and like if they were to make a decision like, oh yeah, 2025 comes around and Superman Legacy underperforms, I mean, if they were to bring Henry Cavill back then, he's gonna be in his mid 40s, and the earliest you get a movie from him is like 2027. So yeah, I do believe at this point it's too late. Like they
Yeah.
would have to probably like the good thing is they don't have to necessarily put the whole franchise on ice because now they have the whole Elseworlds label,
Yeah.
which is where they're gonna house the Joker movies and the Batman and all these standalone films. I feel like if the DCU kind of underperforms or fails and they decide not to stick with it, they can always just go back to doing these like, these
Standalone.
individual standalone
I think
franchises.
honestly they would
So,
have to, because there's just no way that they could possibly go through 3
yeah.
reboots. You know what I mean? Like,
Especially like in such short order. Like
yeah,
either you put it on ice for 10 years and then try
they're gonna
again.
have to wait and just do standalone films
And
until they can
yeah,
truly like figure out what went wrong, until the sort of like, as you were talking about, the superhero fatigue sort of wears off and it becomes something worth investing in again. If this fails, they're just gonna have to go down and deal with it for a
yeah.
little while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's hope it doesn't fail. I
I
think
can't watch a third Superman in 10 years. I won't go
no.
see it.
Well, I mean, we get like a Batman movie every other year, it seems like, or a Spider-Man movie. So,
And I
but
haven't gone to see the Batman movies at all. I
fair
have
enough.
I'm like, no, I went to see the Robert Pattinson one. It's very, very
It's a good
daunting
movie.
to me. It's very
It's
much
probably the
Robert Pattinson. He was like
yes,
playing
definitely.
Edward Cullen playing Batman.
Batman, yeah. Oh, I like his take. I think it's probably the best Batman movie since The Dark Knight. And I'm interested to see like what they do with the second one,
Yeah.
and also the Penguin TV series with Colin
Yeah.
Farrell, who just looks unrecognizable as the Penguin. But anywho, let's hopefully they won't run into the same issues as they did with the DCEU. I certainly believe with the direction that they're going in and James Gunn and what his track record says with the Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yeah.
what he did with the Suicide Squad, and what he's done with Peacemaker, I think he's got the talent and he's certainly got the vision to at the very least give us something different, and hopefully that will be enough to be good. But I mean, it doesn't just because it's different doesn't mean it's good. I certainly hope it's good and different,
Yeah.
and that's the hope. So, guys, let us know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think that Warner Brothers are gonna need to have a backup plan to the DCU if it fails? Is that backup plan the DC Elseworlds banner, or do you think they should, like Angelina, you said, like should they just double down and not think about anything else, because thinking about anything else is already admitting defeat before you even have your first movie coming out the door? So let us know in the comments what you guys think about that, and of course, like and subscribe for more content like this.